All right. Hey there, world history students. This is Mr. Everton. Duh. Um, Coming to you from my porch at home. My cat is angry because I won't let him out. Um, but, he would just like climb in front of the screen while I was trying to record this thing. So he ain't coming. Um, okay, so this is the first VidNotes video for Unit 1. And our essential question is globalization progress? Most of this unit will be about something called globalization, which you definitely learned about last year. But if you don't remember, that's okay, because I'm going to tell you again. And today, in this video, we're going to talk about how did technology lead to globalization. I'm drinking an iced coffee that I made myself. It's good too. So how did technology lead to globalization? Let's define it. Globalization is the interaction of different parts of the world, economically, politically, socially, and culturally. Now, that statement, which you should write down in your notes, has two parts. First, there's the interaction of different parts of the world. That's the most important part. So different parts of the world, which used to be separate, are now, because of technology, coming together and interacting with each other. And then the second half of the statement is just four different kinds of ways that this happens. There's probably more than that, but economically, which means, money; politically, which means leaders of different countries interacting with each other; socially, which means that like people are coming into contact with people who live in other parts of the world more often; and culturally, which means like art and music and movies and TV, food, all that kind of stuff. So what are the technologies that allowed this to happen? Globalization really began to pick up after 1945. And these new technologies that were introduced after 1945 are the reason why. Why after 1945? Because 1945 is when World War II ended. And as part of World War II, there were all of these people inventing new technologies to try to help win the war, right? Like they perfected airplanes. Like airplanes had been like around, but like World War II, they really perfected airplanes and made them a lot better. And so then after World War II was over, they've got these like improved airplanes, and they're like, hey, maybe we could use these for something that isn't blowing stuff up. And there's a lot of other examples of that. So one example of a new technology introduced after 1945 is commercial airlines. Before 1945, today you're just like, oh, I want to take a trip somewhere. Not me, because I'm broke. But if you have money and you're like, I want to go to France, well, you're going to hop on a commercial airline, right? You're going to fly with Delta or Southwest or, I don't know, American or something. And then another important example of a transportation technology, which you've seen these before, but you take them for granted, are shipping containers. Anytime you're buying something that says made in, and it's not like in America, it's coming to America in a shipping container. And in the 1950s, they standardized these shipping containers so that they were all the same size, and they made it so that like the shipping container could go on a plane, it could go on a cargo ship, it could go on the back of a truck, they could put it on trains. And so by doing that, they really like made it more possible to send things from one place to another. We've also got communication technologies. And again, like we take these for granted because we use them every day, but computers, like you're using a computer right now to watch me communicate information to you. Now, early computers, like the one that you see on the top left, were not as sophisticated as your Chromebook, but things keep advancing, right? And the computers in the 1960s were like the size of an entire room. But by 2007, Steve Jobs here, the inventor, the guy who ran Apple when it invented the iPhone, is holding a computer in the palm of his hand, which now you have a computer which can fit in the palm of your hand, and which I ask you to stick into an envelope that goes below your desk at the beginning of class. Of course, also with the rise of that is social media. And these things have had huge impacts on the way that people consume information, the way that people share information, and the way that people live their daily lives. I mean, it's really been a huge shift in the way that people live. So what are some of the effects of these new technologies? Well, for one thing, people are more able to move around, right? People are able to go from one place to another more easily. So we've got migrant workers, which you see pictured here. A migrant worker is somebody who leaves their home country to go to another place to work. And I was just looking at the internet. It says Roughly 5% of workers in the world are migrant workers. That can mean people who come up from Central America to do agricultural work in the United States, like what you see pictured here. It can also mean people who migrate to Europe. And there's a lot of migrant workers in Europe right now who are doing different kinds of jobs. Typically, migrant workers go from a poorer country where there's fewer job opportunities to a wealthier one where there are more job opportunities, fewer to more. Another example, I messed the slides up, but another example of people moving from one place to another are refugees. Refugees are people who leave their home country because it's not safe anymore. Like when the United States pulled out of Afghanistan, I mean, there'd already been plenty of refugees leaving Afghanistan, but there became a huge push of refugees leaving Afghanistan. The civil war in Syria that took place over the last couple of decades, that has led to huge amounts of refugees fleeing Syria into Turkey, into Western Europe, and into the United States. And it's created a lot of disagreement about like what does one country owe to another country? Like when should we allow refugees into a country? We'll talk more about that in class, but I come down on the side of like, if people need help, we should help them, but that's just me. Okay. Another huge change because of new technologies are multinational corporations. Now, multinational corporations, no doubt, had existed before 1945, but there became more of them, and they gained in wealth and power after the end of after 1945. A multinational corporation, you should write this down. I mean, you should write down everything I say because I'm brilliant. But a multinational corporation, multinational, multiple countries, right? So they operate in different countries at the same time. So here you can see a picture of a KFC and a McDonald's right next to each other in China. Here you can see a picture of some Vietnamese women sewing together Nike shoes. So these are companies that are owned by people in the United States that are selling things in China, that are manufacturing things in Vietnam. So new transportation makes that possible. This is going to lead to economic growth for some people. Like Jeff Bezos, the richest man in the world who you see pictured here, the owner of Amazon, or the CEO of Amazon. And Amazon and like Alibaba is like the Chinese version of Amazon. These are other multinational corporations that make huge amounts of money by selling things using these new transportation technologies, right? Like you can get a lot of stuff pretty fast from Amazon just by going on your cell phone and like clicking a few buttons and it'll show up in the mail tomorrow, right? Provided you have the money to pay for it. Okay, another huge change is that as people are able to communicate more easily using cell phones, using the internet, it's going to lead people to share their ideas with other people who agree with them, and it's going to help them to organize political movements. One example of this is Black Lives Matter, which is a political movement designed to get equal rights and make the country safer for Black people, for Black Americans. And, BLM would not be a thing in the way that it is without cell phones. Like the thing that made BLM take off was the ability of people to record the police doing things they shouldn't and then put it on the internet and everybody can see it. Another example of this is the alt-right movement and the election of Donald Trump and the way that, Donald Trump used the internet in a way that no politician ever had before. He was able to communicate without talking to the media and could talk directly to his supporters. Like before that, if the president wanted to talk to people, he'd have to like get newspapers and TVs and the TV reporters in the room and talk through them, and that gave the media more control. But Donald Trump could just like get out his phone and like write a tweet, and like everybody would read it. So that's a huge change. And then the final thing I'm going to talk about is that new communication technologies also make terrorism more possible. We're going to have a separate video on terrorism, but terrorist organizations like Islamic State, like Al-Qaeda, they function through improved communication technologies and through improved transportation technologies. Those are the things that make terrorism possible. Terrorism wouldn't work in the same way that it does if terrorists didn't have access to the internet and cell phones. So I now need you at the end of every video, you're going to do this. You're going to answer the AIM question in 3 to 4 complete sentences. 3 to 4 complete sentences, basically summarizing what the video is about. How did technology lead to globalization? Just write 3 to 4 things about what you learned about this question and at the bottom of the notes page, and then you're done. Congratulations. I hope you look forward to watching many more of these because I look forward to recording them, let me tell you.